aqua friends, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to do a fast and fun episode, another autumn leaf inspired tutorial. The first thing that I did was traced out the main maple leaf onto adhesive contact paper, and you cut that out and you peel off the backing and stick it on your paper. And then you wet the whole thing, and the area where the contact paper is, of course, stays dry so that we could paint the leaf afterwards. So I'm just using a really nice sky blue color, and I'm sort of doing a gradient background with a few wispy clouds. So while the paper is still wet, you can play around with the color that you have on the paper to create some lighter areas. Notice I'm picking the paint off with my brush and wiping it on the paper. Okay, and it just creates these very, very soft, wispy clouds. If you guys are getting value out of this video and you like my artwork, please think about subscribing and hitting the notification button so that you don't miss any of the videos. So wetting the watercolor paper first before you put your colors down is called wet on wet watercolor technique. And the next step is to paint our maple leaf. So peel off your contact paper or erase your masking fluid. And I start by wetting the whole leaf area, because we're also going to do wet on wet watercolor technique for the leaf. So we have all these pretty warm colors merging with one another. It's going to create a very soft effect. So take your time with the outline, with the water, and wet your whole leaf. Sometimes the trick is holding your paper up and kind of looking at it at a glance. You'll see if you missed any spots with your brush. So that's what I'm doing there by holding it up and seeing if I missed any areas. And the reason why I'm being very careful at this stage and making sure it's good and wet is so that I have enough time to put the colors down before that area dries. You could already tell that my paper is warped from the amount of moisture I put on there. So in watercolor, we always work from light to dark. So you're always going to lay down your lightest colors first. So of course that's my yellow. This leaf is very pretty colors. It's yellow and orangey, red around the tips, and the veins are actually green, which makes it very contrasting colors, very eye-catching. So wherever I see yellow, I am putting in those lightest colors. Moving on to my orange color. This is transparent pyrrole orange. I also wanted to mention that when you're going around your leaf, if you notice that your paper is drying, and you will notice this because you won't have soft fuzzy edges, in that case I would go back over the areas that are drying with some water. The first layer that you do of watercolors is really an underpainting, and you're establishing the colors that are going to show through the extra layers that we put on, because watercolor is a translucent paint. And that's why they call, you know, your first 1 to 2 layers is really the ugly stage, known as the ugly stage in watercolor, because everything is washed out and just lightly blocked in. There's no dimension, there's nothing really too pretty about it. And people think, oh my God, like, oh, I suck at this, like I can't paint. But it's not that. It's that you have to stick through that ugly stage and realize that with the multiple layers that we will be building up, it'll start to come together. So after laying down the orange, I'm coming in with some pyrrole red. This is a warm red, and I'm hitting all the edges with that. And notice how it's kind of bleeding into my other colors, so it's really kind of pretty. So notice I re-wet that area a little bit. Now that I'm on the other side of the leaf, I needed to re-wet it so that when I put down that red, it does bleed into the middle of the leaf and has soft edges. Upping the saturation of the ISO yellow deep. Now I am getting blooms. You can see those kind of cauliflower effect happening where the red is meeting the yellow, and that's because that area is drying faster than the middle part where I laid down more paint. starting to actually look like a leaf now. So I'm wetting the areas where the veins are going to be because they're green. I kind of wanted it to spread out, have a little bit more of a softer effect. So kind of wetting the areas where all these veins are going to go. And then with a script liner brush, I'm drawing in all the lines for the veins. So that side is drying. So as I go along, I have to re-wet it. Otherwise, my veins would then turn out to be too crisp on that one side. So that's why I'm re-wetting it. And then I'm just turning, you could definitely turn the paper around to suit your needs for drawing in the lines. I find it easier to draw in the lines when I'm drawing towards me than away from me. And to steady your hand, I always make contact with the side of the palm of my hand on the paper so that I could have nice straighter lines. So now that that's dry, I am upping the vibrancy in this layer and putting in my very warm yellow. Now this layer is wet on dry. So the red and orange that I'm adding is going to mingle with the yellow that I already laid down. And have that blended effect. But when we put wet on dry watercolor technique, our colors aren't watered down by having our paper already wet. So you'll get a very good amount of hue on the paper. Oh, that is starting to look like a maple leaf. Now, of course, there's always brown spots and little imperfections on leaves, and that's what I'm doing here with a little bit of burnt sienna. I am just adding in some imperfections and dots and random marks. So now that side is drying, and what I'm doing is taking a damp brush and blending it out. And that is it, folks. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. See you next week.